Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Ogochukwudum. I'm a front-end engineer and I'll be your guide as we learn about web development together. If you're new to coding and you've been wondering how websites are created, you're in the right place. In this course, I'm going to take you from being a complete beginner to someone who can build confidently with HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and modern front-end tools. There's no need for any prior coding knowledge as we'll start from scratch, we'll build together, we'll make mistakes together, and we'll learn the skills you need to become a confident front end developer or web developer in general. So if you're ready to begin your coding journey, let's start. Have you ever wondered how websites like Google, Facebook, or Amazon are built? So these are big companies. These are companies that use websites and we actually use them. So how are their websites built? So web development, this is actually the elephant in the room. What is web development? We have some learning objectives. Some of them are to understand what web development is, to differentiate between websites and web applications. We also want to look into the different types of web development and the roles of a web developer. So we're going to talk about all of this, especially websites and web applications, because a lot of people actually make the mistake of confusing a website for a web app. So we're going to look into the different types of the difference between a website and a web application. So what's web development? Web development is basically a process of creating and maintaining websites or web applications. So like we said, we have websites, we have web application, and we're going to look at the differences between both of them because both of them on the line, it's the same technology. You sort of need to build both of them, but they are two separate and very different things. So, web development, as the name implies, you're developing something for the web. Now, examples of these things, especially the ones close to us, are things like your school website, your online store, or social media. We talked about Google, Facebook, Amazon. So these are examples of websites or yeah, these are examples of websites and web apps that we've probably come across. So what's a website? What's a web application? Like I said, both of them, they're almost similar, but they are very different. So a website is basically what you just use to consume static content. You consume static content from it. Now, things like your portfolio. So a portfolio is something that you use to sell yourself. It's something that contains your background, projects you've worked on, how to contact you. Most web developers actually use that when they are looking for jobs. So you have not majorly when you're looking for jobs, but just like a something that you use to showcase what you've done for yourself, what you've been doing with your skill. So that's what a portfolio actually stands for. And we are going to also have to create our own portfolio as new web developers that we are becoming. So a website basically displays information, and a web app, on the other hand, actually is a dynamic it allows for dynamic functionality. So you're able to interact, you're able to sign up, you're able to log in, you're able to view chats, play around with chats, get updated information as you interact with it. So so the core difference is that A website on one side is just for static content and for consumption of static content, whereas web applications are dynamic and you just interact with them. Now, examples of web applications are things like your Gmail, your YouTube. Why is Gmail a web application? You have to compose mails, right? You can filter on it, you can edit, you can delete. So these are actually things that you can do on a web app, whereas on a website, like let's say your news page, you can't edit the news there because it's just meant for your consumption, nothing else. So for your YouTube, yeah, you can upload things, you can upload videos that you make, tutorials that you make, you can delete them, you can interact with it however you want. So these are the differences between websites and web apps. Then you talk about who is a web developer. A web developer is somebody who builds websites. Common sense, common knowledge. Yes. So someone who builds websites, what you see, what you interact with, that is a web developer. Now, every website is powered by codes, and codes are special sort of languages that are written to tell the browser how to display a website or how a website is meant to function. Now, a web developer is the one who writes this code. Now, I think I'm saying a lot of nows. Okay, so a web developer also fixes bugs, right? Bugs are issues, abnormalities on a website or a web app that you encounter. Let's say, as a user, you're meant to see your name on your profile. But when you log in, you're seeing John Doe, or you see John Doe for a minute, and then later you see your John Doe for a minute, or for maybe a long period of time, and then you later see your name. So it's actually a bug. It's not how it is meant to work, but it is there. Or let's say, for instance, you notice that your page is reloading and reloading anytime you log into it, or it's maybe an image is broken. These are bugs. These are bugs, and it's the web developer that actually fixes them. A web developer also maintains websites. So let's say, for instance, we have we have a website that was built maybe in 2002, and the company has been using it for a long while. And someone just sat down and said, "Oh, we can do better than this. We can actually have something nicer than this." You get a web designer. A web designer actually makes or creates this new design for the company, and a web developer has to actually create this new website. So from the design, the web developer creates the system and creates the website and updates it. So a web developer maintains websites. A web developer also adds new features. So let's look at it like when WhatsApp started out, it was majorly for chatting. And after a while, the team decided, oh, we could actually add newer things to it. We could actually add things like um, the call feature, both audio and video. That's a new feature. And it's a web developer that actually added those features for you. I'm talking about, well, I'm limiting it to when you use it on your website actually. So, but there are other instances, there are other features, yes, that's you come across, and it's actually a web developer that made them. Okay, so we have two types of web development. Web development is majorly into in of two types. So you have front end and back end. Now for front end deals with what users can see. So when you search for a particular website, let's say google.com, what you see on your page when it finishes loading was built by a front-end developer. So you have your buttons, you have images, you have text, you have forms. So these were built by a front-end developer. Whereas a back-end in back-end development, it deals with data and logic. So data and logic. So let's say for instance, how is a user going to be stored on the database? A backend developer has to think about this. Okay, if I don't want a user to actually access this information, if the person is not an admin, a backend developer is the one who has to manage that flow. So the logic, the data, everything is handled by the back end developer, is handled in back end development. We also have another one that is in between, and we're going to see it shortly anyway. So that one is actually full stack development. So it's sort of like a union of both front end and back end. So I normally advise, if you want to go into any of them, you need to sit back and think about it. What would you feel comfortable with? We'll see them shortly. Now, for front end development, this has to do with things that you can see on a website. So when a user gets on a website, what are the things that the user can see? So you have things like buttons, form, images, layouts. So these are things that the user can see and interact with. Now, we have three major building blocks for web development, and these include HTML, which stands for Hypertext Markup Language, CSS, Cascading Style Sheets, and JavaScript. So these are the three pillars, and we are going to look at what each of them, how do we use them when building websites, and what do they actually do for a website. We'll see them in the coming classes, but for now, let's just have it that these are the three pillars of front end development. Yes. All right. So for backend development, you have things like databases. So your backend development, you handle databases, authentication. Remember, I talked about, let's say for instance, there's a certain page that it's only the admins that are meant to see, or there's a certain information only the admins are meant to see. If you're not logged in, you should not see it. If you're not authorized, you should not see it. And these things are handled by a back-end developer. Now, we also have APIs, which is application programming interface. So application programming interface, this has to do with a sort of bridge between the client side. So the client side is your browser, the client side and the server. So the server, remember the server houses information, houses data, houses what you need to see on your website. Now, a backend developer builds these APIs, which are sort of a bridge between your client and your backend. Now, what happens is, think about it like a restaurant. I want hot dog. The waiter gets, oh, he wants hot dog. He now has to go into the kitchen and check if there's hot dog still remaining. If there's hot dog still remaining, he now brings back your hot dog for you. But if there's no hot dog, he has to tell you that, oh, this is not available. And then if you so want, you check for another this thing. So that is the core difference. That's the core. Uh, that is what API stands for, and that is what it is. So a backend developer does this, and it's under backend development. You also talk about business logic. Business logic has to do with what is the purpose of this application? What is it actually meant to do? So something like CapCut is meant for editing, and the backend developer knows, oh, I have to make this to work to enable editing. Facebook. These people need to be able to chat well, make calls, do this, do that. Same thing for WhatsApp and the likes. So these are business logic. Now we have languages that you can actually learn back-end development for. There are things like Node.js, Python, PHP, Java. There are a lot of them, and you can choose the one you want and specialize in it, and you're good to go. Now, remember I talked about there's a combination of both front end and back end that is more like, okay, it's more like the avatar because he masters all the four elements. So that's Eng for you, even though this is actually not Eng. But then uh full stack development has to do with front end and back end combined together into a single package. So a full stack developer is someone who knows front end, knows back end, and is able to build from beginning till the end. So that's a full stack developer, and that's full stack development for you. All right. How does a website work? So think about a website like when we used to have phone books in the 80s and 90s, where you have uh, where you have people's phone numbers saved on phone books, and then you have to go search for the phone number or the contact of the person, and then you can make calls. Bring it to bring it to our level now. Your smartphones, when you pick it, you have contacts. So you have to go there, you have to search for this contact. When you find this contact, you're able to now call. So your website actually works that way. When you type out a website that you're looking for, your browser sends a request to access the website because you don't have it on your phone. You have to fetch it. So this information now goes through the internet. So the request goes through the internet to the server. Now, when it gets to the server receives the request and then checks through, because remember I told you it's like a phone book where you have different web pages. You have google.com, you have WhatsApp, you have different websites stored there. So it looks for that particular one. When it finds it, it now returns the web pages or the web files for you, and your browser interprets it and displays it to you, and you're able to see and do whatever you want with it. Why would you want to learn web development? So there are different reasons people go into web development. One of them is because there's a high demand for it. So when most people finish school, they're thinking about, oh, what do I want to do for myself? For those, in this age, it's actually not a requirement for learning. You don't really need to go to school, though it helps. You don't really need a degree. You can actually learn web development without a degree and be very good at it, excel at it. I have friends, I have people who have actually done that and they are doing very fine. So there's a high demand for people who are into web development, and it's actually a good area you can specialize in. Now, we also have people who want to be their own bosses. So they just source for gigs, work on them, and they are able to deliver those work. So some people just want to be their own bosses. This is their career. This is what they are doing. They learn, they work, they deliver, and life is good. We also have people who want remote work. So they don't want to have to leave their house, or they want to be able to work from any place in the world. And that is one of the things that the COVID era actually made very possible. So people could stay from their homes and work. People could stay from different places, even up till date. it's still working. A lot of people don't go to a physical office space to work. You just stay from your house and do your work, or stay from a cafe or anywhere you want to and do your work. And that's one beauty of web development. So it's why some people want to learn web development. For some other people, it's to be able to build projects. You use web development to build different projects as you like, whatever you want. But the major thing is that you are solving problem for people. You're actually solving problem for people. So think about it like that. You're actually solving problem for people. Uh, another one, it could be that you want to start a business. So you want to do it like an agency where you get jobs and work on those jobs and deliver for people. So if you look at all of this, you see that you are helping people. You're trying to improve people's lives. So think about it like that and engrave it on your mind that as a web developer, this is what I am going to be doing, helping people solve problems. In summary, we've done a lot of things. So, but I'd like us to just go through them one after the other. So we looked at web development. Web development has to do with developing websites and web apps. So all of this, remember, it has to run on a web browser. Then we also looked at the differences between a website and a web app. So a website is basically something you use to is a platform that you use to just consume information, static information. Whereas a web app, you have to interact with it for it to function how it is meant to be. You log in, you sign up, you do all those, you perform those different actions. Now, we also looked at a front end development and back end development. So remember, front end development has to do with things that you can see and interact with. So those beautiful things that you see on your website, they were created by a front end developer. Back end developer or back end development, I don't know why I'm mixing both of them. Back end development has to do with data and logic. So storing of users' data. So when people log in, where's their information saved? A backend developer handles that. Okay, the business logic of this application, what is it going to be like? If this person takes away so amount of money, what is left? How is it stored? And all of that. A backend developer actually handles this. And then we also talked about full stack development, which I said is almost like Eng from Avatar. So it's someone that knows both front end and back end. So this union makes you a full stack developer. And depending, like I advised earlier, I normally advise people as a beginner, pick up one, learn one, specialize in one, and understand it properly. Then you can pick up a second one and learn, and then you keep growing that way. I have a challenge for us, and I'd like us to look at it. So the challenge is look at three websites today. So just go on the internet, search for three websites, try and identify the navigation bar, the buttons, the images, and the forms. So it's something that you need to do so that you start having a mental model of how websites are and how they work. So I'd like us to really take it serious, take this challenge serious, and try and do it. You can leave a comment with your websites and whatever you found out. In the next in the next set of classes, we're going to be talking about introduction to front-end development, what is front-end development, and how can we use front-end development to build websites. What does it entail? So this was a good one. I'm sure we enjoyed every bit of the class. You can leave a comment for me if you think you actually enjoyed it and you got value from this class. Like, share, subscribe, so that when we have the next class, you'll be notified and you can join and continue enjoying value. Thank you so much, and bye bye. See you in the next class.